to start challenging the history that was fed to us because it's not entirely true. To say that the history of Jamaica that I was taught at Casey or the history that I learned at university in New York is inconsistent is an understatement. Entire chunks, thousands of years of history have been omitted from what we were taught. We're not going to go that deep today. The idea today is to fill in some of the blanks and show you how it all connects to the circumstances that we find ourselves in on this island right now. Because we think that history is a dead thing, but it's not. It's the history that sets up the present and the future. All right? This first slide, I'm being kind of tongue-in-cheek about it, just to make you wonder what makes you Jamaican and what makes this island Jamaica. You ever wondered about that? Who told you you were Jamaican? We know it wasn't God, and if God never tell you, then it can't be true. It must be that some men made it up. Anyway, history is a weapon, and much of the history that we were fed in school is a fiction. But it was told to us in order to make us accept that England has a legitimate claim to own the island, fair and square, and that we are merely immigrants here, so we can't really challenge their ownership, can we? And second, that history is intended to make us believe that the government we have is legitimate, and that we are responsible for the debts that our government incurs. We're going to see how that's not entirely so. Now, in order to do that, we're going to have to take down some of these lies, which means that we're going to have to correct 500 years of history, from 1494 to 2014, and 520 years. 7 points we're going to cover. The first point, Christopher Columbus was not an explorer. There were no such people as Arawak Indians, certainly not here. There was no transatlantic slave trade. I know that one sounds kind of shocking. There was no slave trade. There's no such island as Jamaica. We were never given independence in 1962. We are not Jamaicans. Of course, if there's no island such as Jamaica, then there can't be people called Jamaicans, all right? And finally, the government is not ours, which explains a lot, doesn't it? They're not really working for us. All right, so first, lie. No such people as Arawak Indians. We're told that Christopher Columbus encountered a race of people he called Arawaks. But Spanish historians describe these Arawaks as docile, medium-build, copper-colored people, like the ones you see on the coat of arms, with straight black hair, and they said that they lived here for up to 10,000 years ago. Problem is, no evidence of these people has ever been found. Understand that there is no Jamaican archaeology. There is nobody out there digging up any part of this island to try to find any evidence of anything. So they found no burial grounds, no tombs, no temples, not even a bone fragment or a hair follicle so we can test some DNA. None of this, even though they say that these people lived here for 10,000 years. How do you live anywhere for 10,000 years and not leave an archaeological record of yourself? That's because those Arawak Indians never existed here. In fact, the only people that we can prove existed here in this region are the so-called Caribs. And guess what? The Caribs are not medium-build, copper-colored people, they are black. If anyone's ever been to Trinidad, or St. Vincent, or St. Lucia, or St. Kitts, where these Caribs supposedly were, you'll see that the people that call themselves Caribs are black. They do have, some of them, curly hair, straight hair, but we know that that exists inside the black gene pool anyway. All right? There were no Arawak Indians in this entire region. Research by pioneering black historians and anthropologists revealed that the people Columbus actually encountered here in 1494 were likely the same as he encountered in America, which he wrote about in his journals. They were black-skinned, nappy-haired Nubians. Okay? There's another explorer named Giovanni de Verrazzano, who came to America about 20 years after Columbus, 1514. And he wrote in his journals that the people he encountered were Ethiopian. He said nothing about copper-colored people. And if those people had existed in the Americas for thousands of years, it's a fair expectation that they lived on these islands as well. They lived everywhere. And we're going to see that they left evidence everywhere. So, the point I'm making is, most of our ancestors were already here. Alright? And they had been here for tens of thousands of years, as I'm going to prove. Historians have discovered what they were called. They were called the Amaru. Amaru, this is where the term America comes from. It doesn't come from Amerigo Vespucci. It came from the Amaru, because they knew who was here originally. And another name for them is the Olmec sheep. Well, guess what? Mech, sheep, Mexico. That's where the term Mexico comes from. So if you talk about Americans or Mexicans, you're talking about our ancestors. And they inhabited the entire region, as I showed you, North, Central, and South America, and the Caribbean. They are the real Amerindians that I was taught in high school, and they were black people. You don't know them because Europeans gave them other names. Just like they made up the name Arawak from the Arawak, they made up all these other names to keep you from realizing that everything in the Americas is you. Every artifact they find is you. Every monument they find, you built. But instead they tell you it's Maya, and Inca, and Aztec, and Toltec, and Taino, and Carib, and Arawak. These are all names they made up. Understand that. Alright. And of course, they told you that this is what the Arawak looked like. Or the Amerindians. Right? Anyone ever seen any Jamaicans looking like this? You know why? They never existed here. They want you to think that that's what the Arawak looked like, because they don't want you to know that this is what they look like. These are the original Amaru Khans. These are the original Olmec sheep. These are our ancestors. These are called the Olmec Colossi. Colossi from colossal. And these are massive stone carvings of white people. I mean, this guy looks pretty white, right? This is a white dude, right? No? Okay, well, okay. These are black people. And they're carved out of one solid piece of basalt rock. Basalt is the second hardest rock on earth. First hardest is granite, which is what the pyramids are made out of. And they've dated these heads, and they estimate that they're somewhere between 16,000 to 20,000 years old. Stop and think about that, beloveds. 20,000 years ago, a race of black people excavated massive granite rocks out of the mountains, basalt rocks, and then etched themselves into these rocks. What kind of technology would they have had to be able to do this 20,000 years ago? Because it wouldn't have been a copper chisel. Alright? And I like this slide. Just a comparison. Here's a white dude, and here's a white dude. Right? So we were certain that the Olmec were white. Okay. These depictions weren't just depictions of ourselves. Because if you think about it, I'm not sure why it would be necessary to carve yourself into stone like that. These were actually depictions of our gods. But that's a powerful statement, isn't it? that the depictions of the gods look just like the people. You see what I'm saying? Okay? Historically, every ancient culture always depicted their gods to look like themselves. There's a reason it says in the book that the Creator created man in His image. That means your God must have looked like you. And since there's 5 billion black people on the planet, I would like to believe that a black God created me. I'm just saying. So those are the Olmec colossi, and as I said, they're depictions of the black gods. And the people were the builders of civilizations. They were not primitive. Primitive people couldn't do that. And like our Kemetic ancestors from Egypt, our Olmec ancestors engineered entire city complexes, thousands of years before Europeans crawled out of their caves. Historians have nicknamed the Olmec the mound builders. They call them mound builders because they built these megalithic structures all over the Americas. This is the Pyramid of the Moon. It is in a place called Teotihuacan in Mexico. This pyramid is the second largest, well, it was the second largest pyramid by volume on the planet. It's now the third largest. And I don't know if you can get an appreciation for the scale of this, but I like this picture because see these tiny dots, that's people. Just to show you how massive this thing is. And unlike the pyramids of Egypt, the pyramids built by the Olmecs were meant for you to mount. They were meant for you to climb them and go up there and behold the greatness of your ancestors. This was built by black people. The same Stoneheads I just showed you, white archaeologists have confirmed that they were also the builders of these pyramids. This pyramid is 20,000 years old. And it is built from granite. And it is still standing, unlike the World Trade Center. This used to be the biggest pyramid on the planet by volume. It's called the Pyramid of the Sun. It's on the same complex. This was built by black people. It is massive. It's called the Pyramid of the Sun because it is designed to align with solar phenomena. This is the new King of the Hill. Remember I said to you, this one was the biggest pyramid on the planet. That was until 6 years ago, when they stumbled onto this. This is called El Mirador. It is in Mexico. Mirador is a Spanish word for veranda or rooftop, because they discovered that when you stand on the top of this, you can see for miles. And guess what? When they stood on the top of it, now this had been covered up by jungle. Just to show you, imagine how old this is. This is real. This is not from a movie. This is not special effects. This is an actual photograph. Alright? This pyramid is massive. You can't even see the base of it. It is so old that trees were growing up from inside it. This is in Guatemala, Central America. And this whole area was covered up by jungle for thousands of years. They don't even know exactly how old this is. But so far they've dated it, they've estimated it's 26,000 years. There are potentially thousands of massive pyramids in that one city complex alone. Built 26,000 years ago at least, built by the Olmec Sheep, black people. So that's the first lie about Arawaks. The second lie, Cristobal Colon was a mercenary. This is the man that you know as Christopher Columbus. Anybody ever wondered why suddenly in 1492 all these Europeans decided that they were going to jump on boats and start exploring everywhere? Well, there's a reason. There's always smoke, fire behind the smoke. In 1491, 1 year before his first voyage, there was a war between the Moors and the white Europeans. Actually, that war had been going on for a very long time. The Moors had ruled Western Europe for 700 years. But in 1491, when Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand defeated them at Granada in Spain, Pope Innocente, I love how the popes always have